I want you to meet a man named Robert. Robert is 60 years old. He is sitting across from a financial advisor in a clean, quietly expensive office. The advisor has two printed projections on the desk between them. Both are based on Robert's actual numbers: his savings, his investments, his current trajectory, his expected Social Security benefit. The advisor explains both projections calmly and professionally. He listens carefully as the advisor lays the two charts before him. The first projection shows what Robert's retirement looks like if he continues on his current path. It is not a disaster. He will not be destitute. He will be able to retire eventually at around 68 or 69. He will have enough to cover his basic expenses with modest discretionary income on top. He will need to be careful. He will not have the options he imagined he would have at this point in his life. 68. A number that arrives quietly, years later than he once imagined. The second projection shows what Robert's retirement could have looked like. Same income, same market returns, same 25 years of working life, but with one decision made differently at 35. The retirement age on the second projection is 61. The annual income is significantly higher. The options are real and numerous. Robert could travel. Robert could leave work entirely if he chose to. Robert could absorb a financial disruption without crisis. Robert has choices. An open horizon. The freedom that a single earlier decision could have unlocked. The gap between the two projections, between the retirement Robert has and the retirement Robert could have had, was not created at 60. It was not created at 50 or 45 or even 40. It was created at 35 by a decision that felt completely reasonable at the time. A decision that most people in Robert's position would have made the same way. A decision whose consequences were so slow and so quiet that he never once felt them accumulating. Until now. Until this office. Until these two projections on the desk. One glowing page at 35 and a long chain of quiet years stretching towards 60. My name is Jerry, and this is Explained Financially. Today we are going to talk about the decisions most people make between 33 and 37 that quietly determine everything about their financial life at 60. Not the dramatic decisions, not bankruptcy or catastrophic investment losses or obvious financial failures. The quiet ones, the reasonable feeling ones, the ones that pass every test you apply in the moment and fail every test that only time can administer. By the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly which decisions matter most at 35, why their consequences compound invisibly for 25 years, and what you can do about it, whether you are 35 right now and making them, or 50 and wondering if you already made the wrong call. Two paths diverging from a single point. One rising, one staying low. Before I show you the 5 decisions, I need to give you the mental model that explains why decisions made at 35 have such disproportionate power over outcomes at 60. I call it the quiet multiplier, and understanding it will reframe every financial decision you make for the rest of your life. The quiet multiplier, the force working silently behind every financial choice. The quiet multiplier works like this. Every financial decision you make does not just affect the present moment. It affects every moment that follows through 3 simultaneous channels that operate quietly in the background for as long as the decision remains in place. The first channel is compound growth. Money invested at 35 has 25 years to compound before a typical retirement age of 60. At a 7% average annual return, money doubles roughly every 10 years. That means a dollar invested at 35 becomes approximately $5.43 by age 60. A dollar not invested at 35, spent instead or tied up in a depreciating asset, costs you not $1 but $5.43 in retirement wealth. Every decision that redirects money away from investment at 35 multiplies its cost by 5.43 over the following 25 years. Every dollar spent today is a ghost of the 5 it could have become. Most people know this in a general way. Almost nobody applies it specifically enough to feel the weight of it at the moment the decision is being made. One coin becomes 5.43. That is the power of 7% over 25 years. The second channel is lifestyle lock-in. A financial decision at 35 does not just affect your money. It affects your entire cost structure going forward. The mortgage you take on at 35 determines your minimum monthly obligations for the next 25 to 30 years. The lifestyle level you establish at 35 becomes the baseline that is extraordinarily difficult to reduce without social friction and personal discomfort. The obligations you accumulate at 35. The car payment, the club membership, the private school decision, the vacation pattern. Each one clicks the ratchet one notch and holds it there. Each obligation a notch on the ratchet, clicking forward and locking in place. A lifestyle decision at 35 is not a one-year decision. It is a 25-year decision wearing a one-year price tag. The third channel is behavioral reinforcement. The financial decisions you make at 35 establish patterns. They create habits, expectations, and identity anchors that become progressively harder to change with every passing year. The person who establishes a saving and investing habit at 35 finds it easier to save and invest at 40, 45, and 50. The person who establishes a lifestyle expansion habit at 35 finds it progressively harder to contract at 40, 45, and 50. Because the lifestyle has become who they are, not just what they spend. One groove deepens toward saving, the other toward spending. Both grow smoother with age. Behavioral patterns established at 35 compound through reinforcement just as surely as money compounds through interest. These three channels, compound growth, lifestyle lock-in, and behavioral reinforcement, are the quiet multiplier. They operate simultaneously, invisibly, and continuously from the moment a decision is made until it is actively reversed. Most people never reverse them because they never feel them operating. They feel the outcome at 60. They do not feel the cause at 35. That is what makes the quiet multiplier the most powerful force in personal finance that almost nobody talks about. At 60, a single thread leads all the way back to a decision made at 35. Now let me show you the 5 decisions. These are the specific financial choices most commonly made between 33 and 37 that activate the quiet multiplier in either direction, building quietly toward a remarkable retirement or eroding quietly toward a constrained one. The first decision is how much house you buy. The mortgage decision at 35 is the single largest quiet multiplier activation of a typical person's financial life. Not because housing is a bad investment. Because the amount of house you buy determines your fixed monthly obligation floor for the next 25 to 30 years. And the difference between a modest house and an impressive one, even in the same neighborhood, can run to $800 or $1,000 per month in mortgage payment, property tax, insurance, and maintenance. $1,400 versus $2,400 a month. $1,000 gap every single month. $800 per month redirected from a larger mortgage payment into an index fund at age 35 grows to approximately $613,000 by age 60 at 7% average annual return. The person who bought the modest house and invested the difference does not arrive at 60 with a more impressive home. They arrive with $613,000 more in investable assets and a lower monthly obligation floor that gives them flexibility to absorb disruptions, take risks, and make choices that the person in the impressive house simply cannot afford. The impressive house feels like wealth at 35. The investable assets feel like wealth at 60. And 60-year-old wealth is the only kind that determines whether you have options. The house impresses at 35. The vault is what matters at 60. The second decision is whether you define enough before your income grows. This is the decision that most people never consciously make, which is exactly why it defaults to the wrong answer. Between 33 and 37, most people are in the middle of their fastest income growth period. Promotions are arriving. Bonuses are getting larger. The income that felt aspirational at 28 is becoming reality at 35. And without a deliberately defined finish line, a specific conscious decision about what level of lifestyle constitutes genuine satisfaction, every income increase gets absorbed into lifestyle expansion with perfect efficiency. The rising income vanishes, absorbed completely by an expanding lifestyle. The ratchet clicks with every raise. The lifestyle grows to meet the income, the gap. The margin between what you earn and what your life costs stays at zero regardless of how much the income grows. And a gap of zero at 35, maintained through habit and lifestyle lock-in for 25 years, produces a retirement account that does not reflect 25 years of good earnings. It reflects 25 years of a lifestyle that consumed everything it was given. 25 years of income pours in and drains right back out, leaving the jar nearly empty. The person who defines enough at 35, who decides deliberately that a certain level of comfort is sufficient and redirects every income increase above that level towards savings and investment, breaks the ratchet. Their lifestyle stays flat while their wealth grows. By 60, the divergence between the two trajectories is enormous, not because they earned more, because they decided earlier what enough looked like and stopped moving the finish line every time their income improved. The finish line stays planted, while the wealth climbs far beyond it. The third decision is how you structure your relationship with debt. At 35, most people have some debt, a mortgage, possibly a car payment, perhaps some remaining student loans. The decision is not whether to have debt. The decision is whether debt is a tool you use deliberately and retire aggressively, or a permanent feature of your financial life that you service indefinitely without making meaningful progress against the principal. Cut the chain or drag it forward forever. That is the choice debt offers. The person who treats debt as a temporary tool at 35, who makes accelerated payments against their mortgage, who pays off car loans and does not immediately replace them with new ones, who has a specific and aggressive timeline for becoming debt-free, arrives at 60 with a completely different cost structure than the person who services debt perpetually. The debt-free person at 60 has a monthly obligation floor that is a fraction of the perpetual debtors. That lower floor means lower income requirements, which means earlier retirement is possible, which means the options are real rather than theoretical. A low obligation floor lets you stand free. A towering one crushes the options out of you. The difference in monthly obligations between a debt-free 60-year-old and one still servicing a mortgage, 2 car payments, and a line of credit can easily run to $3,500 or $4,000 per month. That is the difference between needing $60,000 per year in retirement income and needing $100,000 per year. It is the difference between your savings lasting and running out, and it was determined at 35 by whether you treated debt as temporary or permanent. One reservoir lasts. The other drains dry as the clock keeps ticking. The fourth decision is how you invest, and specifically whether you start early enough for compound growth to do the heavy lifting. Most people understand intellectually that starting early matters. Very few feel the specific weight of what starting at 35 versus starting at 45 actually means in dollar terms. So let me make it specific. Plant the seed at 35, and it is already a sapling. Plant at 45, and it is barely sprouting. 240,000 over 25 years against 192 over 15. At 60, with a 7% average annual return, Person A has approximately $648,000. Person B has approximately $505,000. Person A invested more total dollars and ended up with significantly more money. Person B invested at double the monthly rate for the same number of years and arrived with $143,000 less. The difference is not the amount invested. It is the decade of compound growth that Person B gave away by waiting. Those 10 years of compounding between 35 and 45 are the most valuable investment years of a typical working life. Giving them away in exchange for lifestyle flexibility in your late 30s and early 40s is the most expensive trade most people never realize they are making. Those 10 years between 35 and 45 are the brightest on the whole timeline. And individually, none of these investments is obviously wrong. The neighborhood might genuinely be better for the children. The car might be a reasonable reward for real achievement. The club might have genuine networking value. Alone, each status symbol looks perfectly reasonable in its own spotlight. The problem is not any individual status investment. The problem is what they collectively do to the financial margin. The gap between income and spending that is the only engine of wealth building. Every dollar redirected towards status maintenance is a dollar that is not compounding. Every obligation added in the name of lifestyle is a notch on the ratchet that cannot easily be reversed. The person who arrives at 35 with $2,000 per month of financial margin and gradually trades it away for status investments over the following 5 years arrives at 40 with the right neighborhood, the right car, and a gap of zero. A $2,000 margin collapses to zero, drained into accumulating status. The quiet multiplier turns that traded margin into a specific number over 25 years. $2,000 per month invested from 35 to 60 at 7% average annual return grows to approximately $1,620,000. The person who maintained $2,000 per month of financial margin at 35 and protected it from status spending over the following 25 years arrives at 60 as a quietly wealthy person. The person who traded that margin for the visible version of success arrives at 60 with an impressive life and a retirement account that does not match it. One quietly wealthy beside a towering stack, one impressively dressed beside a mismatched account. Now let me show you two men who made these 5 decisions differently. Because the abstract matters less than the specific, and the specific is where the quiet multiplier becomes impossible to rationalize away. The first man is called Daniel. Daniel is 60 years old. He is a senior manager at a manufacturing company in the Midwest, earned between $90,000 and $130,000 for most of his career, and made what I would describe as deliberately modest financial decisions throughout his mid-30s. At 35, Daniel bought a house that was well within his means. Not the most impressive house he could have afforded, but a genuinely good home in a good area. His mortgage payment was $1,400 per month when his colleagues were paying $2,200 and $2,400. He drove a reliable car he owned outright. He defined enough early, decided that a comfortable, genuinely good life was his target, and stopped moving the target when his income grew. He started investing $1,000 per month at 35 and increased that amount every time he received a raise until by his late 40s he was investing $2,200 per month automatically. Daniel watches the automatic contributions climb, calm and satisfied. Daniel is 60 years old. He has $1.4 million in invested assets. His mortgage is fully paid. His monthly obligation floor is $2,100. He can retire this year if he chooses to. His retirement income from investments and Social Security will be approximately $82,000 per year, more than he needs for the life he has built. He has options, real ones. He intended to start investing seriously once the kids were through school, once the mortgage was a bit lower, once things settled down a little. Things did not settle down. They expanded. The kids needed more. The mortgage did not reduce meaningfully. The lifestyle ratcheted upward with every raise. Warren glances at a flat, near-empty balance as the bills pile beside him. Warren is 60 years old. He has $340,000 in invested assets. His mortgage has 9 years remaining. His monthly obligation floor is $6,800. He cannot retire at 60. He probably cannot retire at 65. He will need to work until 68 or 69 in a role that may or may not exist, in a body that may or may not cooperate, to fund a lifestyle that he built at 35 without understanding what it was quietly becoming. He stares out the window at dusk, the number 68 waiting faintly behind him. Same income, same career, same 25 years. Daniel has $1.4 million and options. Warren has $340,000 and a decade of required work ahead. The difference: $1.06 million and approximately 8 years of freedom was created entirely between the ages of 33 and 37 through decisions that each felt reasonable in isolation, whose combined 25-year consequence neither man could fully see at the time they were making them. Now here is what you actually do with this. Whether you are 35 and the decisions are still ahead of you, or 50 and the decisions are behind you. If you are near 35, the framework is simple. Before any significant financial commitment, a house, a car, a lifestyle level, an obligation. Run it through the quiet multiplier. Take the monthly cost and multiply it by $613 to get its approximate 25-year compound cost at 7% returns. A $1,000 per month decision at 35 has a 25-year compound cost of $613,000. A $500 per month decision has a cost of $306,500. These are not abstract numbers. They are the retirement options you are purchasing or forfeiting with every significant financial decision you make right now. A hand pauses over the contract, the true 25-year cost projected above the pen. If you are 45 or 50 and you recognize Warren's story in your own history, the framework is different, but the opportunity is real. The quiet multiplier still has time to work for you. 10 years of aggressive investing. Cutting obligations, redirecting margin, making the gap exist, and protecting it can produce outcomes at 60 that are significantly better than the current trajectory suggests. The compound window is shorter. The monthly contribution needs to be larger. But the mechanism still works. The ratchet can be reversed. It is painful, and it is social, and it requires giving up some of what you built the visible version of your life on. But the alternative is working at 68 in a job you have outgrown, funding a lifestyle built for someone 25 years younger, with the options you assumed were coming gradually revealing themselves as things that happen to other people. 5 rules before we close. Rule 1. Run every major financial decision at 35 through the 25-year quiet multiplier before you commit. Monthly cost times 613 equals the compound retirement cost. See that number before you sign. Rule 2. Define enough before your next raise arrives. Write it down. A specific lifestyle level that constitutes genuine satisfaction. Then commit to redirecting every dollar above that level toward investment rather than lifestyle expansion. Rule 3. Treat your mortgage as a temporary obligation with an aggressive exit timeline, not a permanent feature of your financial life. The difference between a 30-year payoff and an aggressive 18-year payoff is not just the interest saved. It is the monthly obligation floor at 55 and 60 that either gives you options or removes them.